Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Donatiu Hernandez Garcia. I am a member of the Language Engineering Group at Engineering Institute at UNAM. And today, I'm very happy to present this paper, a case study in authorship attribution, the Mondrigo. The other authors are Gerardo Sierra, Elena Gomez Adorno, and Gemma Belenguix. And we are very happy to present this paper on the Language and Knowledge Engineering Congress at the WAP. So I'm going to start this presentation. In this paper, we present authorship attribution methods that were applied to the Mondrigo. The Mondrigo is a controversial text supposedly created by order of the Mexican government to defame a student strike. Up to now, although the authorship of the book has been attributed to several journalists and writers, it could not be demonstrated and remains as an open problem. So this work aims to establishing which one of the most commonly attributed writers is the real author. To do that, we implement the methods based on stylometric features. We're using textual distance, supervised and unsupervised learning. So the distance-based methods that we implemented in this work are Kill-Arif and Delta of Burrows. On the side of the supervised learning, we use a super vector machine algorithm. And on the side of the unsupervised methods, we use the K-means algorithm. So I'm going to say that the applied methods were consistent by pointing out an author that we think is the most likely one. So I'm going to start with the background of the Mondrigo. I'm going to say that we are looking to offer a neutral perspective. We have chosen the different methods in order to compare different results and not only have only one. So we follow the formal protocol of an authorship attribution, in which a corpus of undoubted authors is formed for each alleged author, and one more contains the alleged text. So the text are quantified stylometrically, and computational algorithms indicate the distance between the text or the degree of similarity. So in this case, we have the text of the authors. We pass that text in our system, the system Sauté. I'm going to talk more about Sauté on next. So with Sauté, we get feature vectors. We make a data integration, and we train the model, supervised learning, unsupervised learning, the distance-based methods. And as the result of the training models, the output is an auto identification. So I'm going to go deeper on these concepts next, but I'm going to give you an overview of what happened on authorship attribution. Basically, for those who are not acquainted with this word, with this concept, authorship attribution, is the way that we have to identify the author of an unknown text. Of course, there are requirements that need to be met, but this is how this works. So I'm going to talk a little about the Mondrigo, which I think is a very interesting text. Okay, so Months after the student massacre occurred in Tlatelolco, in Plaza de las Tres Culturas, on October 2nd, 1968, a book, the Mondrigo, was distributed for free in newspaper stands, home addresses, and rallies of some political party. So the Mondrigo was presented as the edition of a handwriting diary belonging to a student movement leader founded in the Plaza of the Tres Culturas. But the fact that the publishing house, Editorial Alba Roja, does not have a registry or any other published work is that we know as the ghost publishing. So of course there is no student leader. this book was composed and published and released by government, and that's the thing, because the Mondrigo is a apocryphal diary, is a state mechanism to delegitimize the student movement, to defame the student movement. It seems to be elaborated with reports of the police, infiltrated spies, because nothing is missing in this book. Dates, names, protestors, everything. So more than a lot of copies of this work were distributed. So after that, the people starts to asking who writes the Mondrigo, who in the government is the responsible to this book. So we develop an historical research to know that, and we found five probable authors. First, Gregorio Ortega Hernandez, director of the American Magazine and close friend to the head of the political police. His son, Gregorio Ortega Molina, which was a personal editor of Fernando Gutierrez, the boss of the police. Both father and son showed a complete rejection of the student movement, expressed in their published articles and columns. Another pointed author was Roberto Blanco Moeno, a historian and journalist very close to the political party. Jorge Joseph, another journalist very close to the President Díaz Ordaz. He worked as an analyst in the Department of Political Communication. He worked as a public speaker, journalist, politician. And the another one is Emilio Uranga, PhD in philosophy, a public servant of this political party. And he reached the highest level of the Secretaría of Gobernación, where he was in charge of the party's ideology. So in order to check, because we identify these five writers, but we add another one, Alberto Chimal, which is a Mexican writer. And Alberto Chimal is not related with the Mondrigo or with these five suspected authors. But we add as a check author in order to know if our algorithms, our methods is working well. So now, once it's clear what is the Mondrigo and why it's important, I'm going to talk about authorship attribution. On the technical aspect of authorship attribution requires an unknown authorship text, in this case the Mondrigo, and a set of likely authors. In this case, these authors was delimited by historical research. So as I mentioned before, these texts are these techniques of authorship attribution are very, very famous. Well, I'm not going to go deeper on that. Well, in authorship attribution, the author of a text can be selected out of a set of likely authors through the comparison of the textual measures of the text. with the same measures of the writing sample of the author. By quantifying the literary style, we using different variables. It can be considered as a fingerprint on the text. And stilometry is defined as the search of quantifiable units that show exactly the style of the text, which is a set of measurable patterns that can be unique for each author. It's a kind of a fingerprint that every one of us leaves on every text that we write. So authorship attribution use numerical data to identify and recognize the style of a writer. These STLemas markers are obtained for textual measures. For example, you can count the number of times that certain word appears on the text, or any other methods. I'm going to go deeper at this next. But I'm going to be clear that the writing style is a combination of decision that involves the production of language at different linguistic level. For example, lexical choices, syntactic structures, coherence in speech, for example. So stilometry is the discipline in charge of quantifying the stylistic features of a text that must be outstanding, structural, frequent, easily quantifiable, and relatively immune to writer's conscious control. So in modern days, because stilometry has a long tradition, but in modern days, the stilometry has incorporated natural language processing techniques and methods to explore different style markers based on syntactic analysis, back of words, part of speech tags, and for each stilometric variable, we generate a frequency vector where every dimension corresponds to a different feature. So these vectors represent the author's writing style, and compared with each other, the vectors of the dot text results in the authorship attribution. So we do that, the feature extraction, the stilometric extraction, we do that through Sauté, which is an online system which is accessible from any computer. We, as a language engineering group, we developed that systems. And Sauté counts, we upload the documents to Sauté through our corpus gesture. So Sauté counts the occurrences of the selected characteristics and normalize the frequencies. Sauté create vectors for each document, and this is a whole automated process. So we upload the text, and as an output, we have these vectors, these feature vectors, that and with these feature vectors, we can implement a wide range of methods, machine learning and distance-based method, as we can see next. So I'm going to talk a little bit about stilometric features. We have, for example, bigrams of characters, which counts all these things that I'm going to mention next. Are the features, the stilometric features, what we measure of the text. So bigrams of characters are the appearance of two consecutive characters. It's called white spaces are considered as characters. We have unigrams of function words, the appearance of function words, articles, determiners, preposition, conjunctions are counted, and the frequency of each word is divided by the total of appearance. We have bigrams of function words. We have the length of the sentences, length of words, unigrams of post tags. Posts are parts of speech tags. Unigrams, bigrams, digrams is the set of the number, for example, 2 or 3 or 4. It's a set, that characteristic that we count. We have pause, we have a grammatical category at the beginning or at the end of the sentence. And we count all of that. And once we have the frequency of these things, we were capable to implement the methods that allows us to know which is the author. This is a screenshot of our system, Saute. As I say before, this system is public. Everyone can access to that and using. Of course, it needs to be previous register. But that's so much about. So now I'm going to talk about the distance-based methods. Distance-based methods that the distance-based method that we use on this work are Kilgarif. The Kilgarif method establishes the concept of the distance between text. Of course, there are not text, are vectors. If an author writes to text and both are compared, the distance between them must be minimal, meaning that both texts have been written by the same person. If the distance between those vectors are too long, that means that the texts are not related for some author. Also, we use delta of Burrows, where given a sample document and a series of documents whose authorship is fully defined, it gives a distance measure with all the authors identifying each author's particular style. This measure is delta, and the smaller, the more certainty there will be about the origin of that text. Also, we use supervised learning. In the case of supervised learning, we use tags in each instance that the system is trained. We take the set of vectors and we assign a tag of the author. And in this case, the numerical data that characterize each author has a label with the name of the author, so that the system associates this data with the name of the person corresponding to it. In an authorship attribution, where a text of unknown authorship is assigned to an author from a set of candidate authors. So we train the model with the vector of the authors that we are sure the authorship. And then we pass the vector of the unknown text. And as an output, the system says to us which is the most likely author. So this is a multi-class classification with a unique label and text classification task for the side of the machine learning. On the in this case, we use a super vector machine to the authorship attribution of the Mondrigo. This unsupervised learning, we use clusters. We use the K-means algorithm. K-means receives the processed characteristic of the text and proceeds to group them according to their similarity. These methods organize each of the authors and the anonymous text into clusters, and the authorship relationship is verified when the algorithm places the data of the anonymous text and the text of an author in the same cluster. So for this method, the system makes clusters with the authors that we know with the undubious text. And when we pass the vectors of the unknown text, in this case the Mondrigo, the algorithm put that data in the clusters which is most likely to be the author. So now I'm going to talk about the results. On the Kilgarif method, we have the smaller distance with Jorge Joseph. That means that the vector of the text of Jorge Joseph have the shorter textual distance between the Mondrigo. So according to this method, Jorge Joseph is likely to be the author of the Mondrigo. We also have another results, Alberto Chimal, which is the bigger one, and another ones. So in this case, we have the results of delta of Burrows, which points to Jorge Joseph. In this case, Burrows measures closeness between vectors. The smaller the number, the greater the probability of the authorship. So according to this method, Jorge Joseph is also the author of the Mondrigo. So in this case, we have the supervised learning results. I'm going to explain what we have in this table. In the SM column, this abbreviation corresponds to the stilometric features. Key stands for kernel. We select the best kernel that had the best performance, linear, sigmoid, RFB. So and based on that, we chose the kernel, and when we paste the vectors of the Mondrigo, the output is the probability of the author. So in this case, I think we have different results. It not points all to Jorge Joseph, but most of the markers points to Jorge Joseph. Six markers points to Jorge Joseph, and in this case, this points to Alberto Chimal, which is the test author in order to check this. But for example, in this case, if Alberto Chimal wasn't on this experiment, we also have this column for Jorge Joseph. We have another ones distributed, but the supervised learning points to Jorge Joseph as an author too. Now we have the unsupervised learning. We can see the clusters, and we can see on this table we use three clusters: lexicon cluster, punctuation clusters, and back of words cluster. So we can see that Jorge Joseph and the Mondrigo, Jorge Joseph is the cluster 2, and we can see that the Mondrigo and Jorge Joseph are in the same clusters. You can see you can see here number 2 and number 2. Number 2. In this case, we can't obtain the cluster on the punctuation, but on the lexicon cluster and back of word clusters, that points to Jorge Joseph to be the author of this text. So as a final result, we have that according to the methods of authorship attribution that we have been implemented in this work, Jorge Joseph is the most likely author of the Mondrigo. So saying that, from my side, this is everything, and thank you. I'm going to say thanks for your attention, and bye. This is all for my side. Goodbye.